Hey guys, me and B2 got another great video for you. This comes from Top Tennis Training. They're amazing. They have over 25,000 subscribers. And this comes from TennisCon 2, and it's all about just mastering the mid-court, right, B2? It's an incredible video, and you're going to love it. If you love this video, go down in the description below and make sure you get your free ticket to TennisCon 4. They do an amazing job. Alex and Simon are back in TennisCon 4. They've got a great video on how to play aggressive and consistent from the baseline. I'm getting kind of drowned out by this sound back here, so enjoy the video and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Hey guys, Simon and Alex here from Top Tennis Training, the biggest online tennis coaching platform in the world with over 250,000 followers.
My name is Alex Slabinski and I'm a former British number 4 player and ATP Tour player. I've played on the ATP Tour for over 10 years in tournaments such as Wimbledon, US Open, Australian Open. I've played players like Roger Federer, Andy Murray, Gilles Muller, Kevin Anderson, even the Bryan brothers. Since retiring, I turned my passion into coaching, and I hold a level 5 Master Performance Coach qualification, which is the highest award for a coach available in the UK.
And I'm Simon Connoff. I was a former ITF player myself, and for the past 10 years I've been coaching full-time with players from a complete beginner right up to international level players. I'm an LTA level 4 senior performance coach here in the UK, and together we make Top Tennis Training. Now in this video we're going to cover how to take advantage of those short forehands that you're getting in a match to either hit a nice approach shot or a winner.
To make it easier for you, we're going to break it down into 3 sections. It's read, react, and respond.
Now read is all about recognizing that the ball is coming short so you have enough time to set up.
React is all about the movement to the ball, your footwork and the stances that you're going to use for the shot.
And the response is all about how you're going to actually hit the shot and where you're going to hit the ball into, plus where you're moving after you hit that shot.
So now let's have a look at read first.
Now there are 2 main ways that you're going to actually get a short ball.
Now the first way is when you actually force your opponent to give you a short ball. This is by hitting a deep shot or a wide shot, or perhaps you've hit a hard shot at your opponent where you've jammed them up and you're expecting that short ball, you're anticipating the short ball, and that's one way that you can almost read and prepare for the short ball before it's actually even happened.
Now the second way is your opponent actually hits a bad shot. So they're in the right position, they've set up correctly, but their shot hasn't been executed properly, and they actually give you a short ball unexpectedly.
Now for that, you'd have to react to that short ball simply by watching the qualities of that ball. So you have to judge that the ball is going to come in a little bit shorter. So what are the qualities of the short ball?
Most of the time a short ball will be hit with either a lot of topspin or excessive topspin, so it will dip quite early. A ball that hasn't been hit with much pace, so the racket head going through the contact point has been quite slow or slower than a normal shot, or they've actually opened up the strings and just hit us a slice or a nudge shot, and you'll see that that ball is coming with less pace and it's going to land short.
You can judge a lot by the sound that the ball makes. So the sound of your opponent's racket, whether it's been hit like a full sound, like a really hard hit, you'll be able to hear. Whereas a topspin sounds a lot of a thinner, it's more of a thin sound, and you'll be able to judge just by the way that ball's been hit. Also, if they frame the ball, you'll also be able to hear it, and sometimes those balls also land quite short.
Now it's much easier to read if the ball is going to your left or to your right. If I'm on the baseline, it's much easier for me to read if it's going to my backhand or to my forehand. But the perception of depth is something that's much harder to learn and much harder to train. But it's something that we all must work on if we want to be able to capitalize on those short balls.
Now in this drill, Simon's going to feed balls to me with different feeds. So he's going to vary the topspin, slice and hard hit, and I'm going to have to call out whether it's a short ball or a deep ball and try and get to it. Short! Now I can tell quite a lot by the way Simon takes back his racket, whether he's taking it back quite far or if he's quite close to contact. I can straight away judge whether the ball is going to go short, even sometimes before he hits the ball. Short. Deep. Short. Now there I recognised that Simon opened up his racket quite early. I knew he wasn't going to be able to hit a hard shot. I knew the ball was going to travel slow through the air, and I was already prepared to go forward. That's why I called the short ball. Now ideally you want to call out deep or short before the ball has crossed the net. This will give you enough time to prepare for the ball when you get there.
Now one of the biggest problems that players do on this type of short ball is because you have extra time, because you feel like the ball isn't a ball that's going to put you in any danger, you relax and your intensity drops and you actually get to that ball very late when it actually starts to drop.
Another thing is obviously you're not going to get close enough to the net, so the quicker you react, the more intense you are with your movement, the quicker you can get closer to the net, the more angles you're going to have, the more chances you have of hitting a harder, flatter shot. The more the ball drops, the lower it gets, the more topspin you're going to have to apply, the less chance you have of hitting that hard shot. You're going to have to use placement on it, so you're going to lose your chance to actually attack the ball. So what you want to do is be as intense as possible with your movement, try and close the gap between you and the ball to prepare early and make little small adjustment steps in the process. Another very common thing that players do is they see the short ball and they blindly run to it and they almost overrun it, which then causes them to be in trouble. So they almost put themselves into trouble. They put themselves close to that ball because they think, oh, it's a short ball, I have to get further in, I have to go and get it, and then the ball bounces up at them and they're not prepared to hit the proper shot. So those are the two main problems you would have in missing that ball. So we're going to deal with them right now.
Now that you've recognized that the ball is coming short, now it's all about that reacting and moving up to that short ball. Now there are many different types of short balls that you'll receive. You'll receive some that are higher, some low ones, some wider into the tram lines and some more in the middle of the court. You'll receive different types of spins and you'll also be moving to that short ball from different locations on the court. But to keep it very simple, we'll cover two main ways that we can move up to that short ball.
So one would be if it's a drop shot, so this is where you literally just sprint to the ball. You have to get there as quick as possible, because if you don't just sprint, you're not going to get there in time, you're not going to be able to hit a shot. The second way is when you have time. This is when you have to turn your shoulders, you have to generate the power from your body, you have to turn, you have to get there, but you have to be in a ready position to hit an actual shot rather than just making the ball or placing it, and therefore you're going to have to use a different kind of movement for that shot.
So if we cover firstly the one where we're actually going to turn, where we have a bit more time, it all starts with that split step. So you've hit your shot, you're waiting for your opponent to make contact with their ball and you do a split step. Now you've recognized that the ball is coming short. Depending on where it is on the court, you're going to react differently, but if you can and if you have time, that first step will be a pivot step around your right leg with your left foot. So notice that Alex is taking that step forward, at the same time he's turning his left shoulder sideways onto the net, which is going to engage the trunk and get his upper body ready for the shot.
Now from here, I have a choice. I either do side steps if the ball is going to come a little bit deeper, so I can turn and side step to the ball and then hit the shot. This is probably when I would use something called a pivot step, so this is when I pivot around my left foot and hit the shot. So for the second option, I can pivot again, so I'm putting my left foot forward. This is again the more aggressive option. Now if I'm defending, I'll be pivoting back. If I'm being aggressive, if I'm attacking, if it's a short ball, I'm putting the left foot forward. Again, I'm turned, but now I can use the crossover step. I use the crossover step to get to the ball, and then later I can use the different footwork patterns during the shot that we're going to cover later on in the video.
Now Alex, why would we not use a side step but a crossover step?
Now, a crossover step allows us to cover a lot more distance. We're very limited with a side step because we're always limited by that front foot. So we can side step only a limited length, whereas a crossover allows us to cover a lot more length because this leg is now moving across over that limiting leg. So it's therefore almost like a running step rather than a side step. So you're going to, one, be able to cover a lot more ground, and also it's actually a little bit quicker. So you can actually explode into it a little bit quicker than with the side step. You're never going to quite be able to let yourself go with side steps. Side steps are more like adjustment steps. They're not ones that are going to cover big distances, but they are used to keep yourself sideways, and they are very useful in the balls that are coming a little bit deeper.
Now what would happen if we have a ball around the blue cone or the yellow cone, where we actually have to go sideways and forwards at the same time.
So here we would definitely use the crossover step, because if I use side steps, I'm simply not going to get there enough, and if I use a side step in that situation, I'm going to be a little bit too turned. So if I'm sidestepping here, I'm now in a closed position to then hit the shot into that direction. So I want to be able to use the crossover step, where I'm going to be going here, and then I'm probably going to be using the outside leg in this situation, because as I hit the shot, I'm going to have to try and cut back in to the court, otherwise I'm going to be exposed on that left wing if I'm making the approach.
Now Alex, what kind of steps would we use to get to that blue cone, something that we're going to make contact with past the single sideline into the tram lines?
Now again, I'm going to be pushed out quite wide here. It's a short ball, but I'm pushed out quite wide. So I have two options. First of all, I'm definitely going to have to sprint them and have to get to the ball as quickly as I can. Then I'm going to have a few adjustment steps where I slow my body down. And at the end, I either use the right to right if I'm actually on balance. So if the ball is not too far away from me, I'm going to use the right to right. So this is where I sprint, 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 adjust, 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 right to right, cut into the court. And the second part would be exactly the same, but because the ball is further away from me and it's lower, I would maybe use the right to left footwork, where I'm using the right leg and then I'm continuing my left, and then I'm going into the court. So that option, again, you're going to be exposed a little bit more, because you're not going to be able to continue moving into the court within your movement. So you're going to have to be really quick once you finish the shot, but it's an option if the ball is short. So this is how it looks.
So once again, we have a sprint if it's a drop shot. If the ball's slightly deeper and you don't have to move too wide, you've got the side steps. So you've got that pivot, side step, then you can hit the shot. If the ball's slightly shorter, you can then use the pivot step, crossover step to cover more ground with that crossover step. If the ball's slightly wider, you can then have that sprint that then turns into a side step, or you could have the sprint into right to right or right to left. So now we've got up to the short ball, there are many different ways that we can actually hit the shot, the different stances and the different footwork patterns. So let's take a look at each one right now.
The first thing we're going to look at is the left to left. Now you see Federer, you see a lot of the players doing it. This is a transition shot into the net. This is where you know you're going to come forward, you know you're going to have to get close to the net, and you're going to try and hit a volley straight after. So this is me using my left leg at the start. So I'm putting my left leg forward, and as I'm hitting it, I'm landing on the same leg and I'm continuing forward. Now the footwork here is I'm trying to cover as much distance as I can left to left, but I'm also using my right leg as a balancer that goes back, so that I'm actually creating a little bit of torsion with my body. So I'm twisting against that leg and it's giving me balance so that I don't fall forward onto the court. So this is when I use my left to left, the right leg is going back, and then I can continue moving forward. So during the contact, I'm using the left to left motion. The second one we're going to cover is when you use the right to left. This is particularly useful for those high balls when you have a little bit more time to set up, and it gives you the most torsion in your body, where you can actually rotate, you can actually twist your body against your hip, because this is where you get the power from, the twist of shoulder against hip. So this actually allows you to do that the most, even more so than with a neutral stance. So by doing this, you're going to give yourself as much chance to generate power. So this is usually a shot where you're going to actually go for it. You're not going to be placing it, you're going to be giving power. This is a great shot for generating power. That's the right to left motion. So you run up to the ball, right, and then left, and then continue moving forward. Or if you haven't hit a good shot, you can also go back. You're going to go right to left to right, and then you can push back. So you're not just expected to come forward after that shot. You can also move back.
Now when the ball's slightly wider, there's different footwork patterns to use on those wide ones. It all starts with that right leg.
So again, I can get to that ball, I'll get my right leg out, and here whether if I'm trying to cut back into the court and I have a little bit of time, I'll use the right to right and I'll push off back into the court. Now, it's important that I use that right leg to actually come outside of my center of gravity. So if my body's here, I don't want to just go up and stay there, because now I'm unable to push back into the court. What I need it to do is to actually push outside of my center of gravity, where I can use the outside force to push myself back in. So as I get onto my right leg, I push outside, and then that naturally then propels me into the opposite direction, that opposite force. Now if I don't do that, I'll actually get off balance and I won't be able to get into position. Now, going from that, if you are feeling like you're going to get off balance, you won't be able to use the right to right. There, you're going to need to use the right to left, which is almost like a crossover step during your shot. So as I get there, I'm going to use my right leg and then do a crossover step during my shot, and then I'm going to cut into the court. That is going to take a little bit longer, so therefore you're going to hit a little bit of more of a better shot from that position if you want to still succeed in the rally.
Yep.
Now the last move we're going to cover is the pivot step. This is where you plant your left foot in front and then you pivot on it, so you bring your right leg around, and then you can either choose to continue forward with the motion, so you can continue forward and moving in. Or you can go back, so you go pivot and then crossover and back. A great way to actually move forward is, once you do the pivot step, is to do a side step as a transition move before your shot. So I will do the pivot, side step, and then I'm in. So it's pivot, then side. Because a lot of the players will actually pivot, but then they'll actually find it tough to start moving forward, and then it takes you a little bit longer to then pivot again. So pivot side allows you to get closer to the net and become a better transitioner.
Now you might be thinking all these different footwork patterns are great if you use something like a semi-western or even a western forehand grip, but I use a continental grip, or I use an eastern forehand grip. Now these footwork patterns and these stances will still work for you, but all you have to adjust is the contact point. So if I use a semi-western forehand grip, I can hit the ball somewhere around my shoulder height, and I can hit it quite effective using these footwork patterns. Now if I use a continental grip and I try to hit that same ball, it's going to be very, very hard for me to control that shot and get anything on it. So I want to let the ball drop slightly, more around to waist height, and I can still use the same forward pattern. So if I'm using the left to left, I can still use that with the continental grip without changing anything with the feet or the stances.
You can also do that not just off a dropping ball, but also a rising ball, so you don't even let the ball rise. You're going to have to be a little bit quicker with your feet.
Now we'll get you back to the video in a second, but before we do, we just want to say that if you want to learn more from us, we have a variety of courses for every shot in the book.
Now we have a course with Tommy Robredo on the single-handed backhand. Tommy was former world number 5. We have a course with former world number 3 David Ferrer on the tactics and technique.
Now we also have a course with David Nalbandian. He was former world number 3 and he won the ATP Tour finals, defeating Roger Federer in that final. Now we have a course with him on the two-handed backhand, but also on the return of serve. David was known as one of the best returners of his generation.
We also have a course with Sam Groth, the world's fastest server. Sam will teach you how to hit your fastest serves.
Now we also have a course that covers the forehand blueprint, and we also have the footwork blueprint to help you with your movement on the tennis court. Now if you want to check out any of these courses, you can do so by going to our website, and there you can watch the free videos, and if you like it, you can also join the full course. So now it's all about the response. This is all about where you're going to hit it and how you're going to hit it.
So first let's cover how you're going to hit the ball. Let's have a look at the grips. What grips are we going to use in that shot?
Now some of you might be playing with the continental grip, some of you might be playing with the Eastern forehand grip, and if you've learned more for modern game, you might play with the semi-Western forehand grip. Now the semi-Western will give you the most options on this type of shot, but if you are using the Eastern or continental, you can still work with your grip and make it work for you.
The reason that the semi-Western grip is so successful at getting those high balls is because I'm able to keep the racket flat onto the oncoming ball, while not twisting my wrist too much. If at the same position I was in an Eastern forehand grip, if I'm here, my racket would be open. I would have to either one, make my contact later, or two, make my wrist turn. So by turning the wrist, I'm going to lose a lot of power. I'm going to have less leverage on the ball. So actually making the contact late, then you become a little bit more stiff. You're not going to be able to generate quite as much power. And that's the same for the chopper grip, or the continental grip, and the Eastern grip. The most successful grip for handling the high balls would be the semi-Western grip. If you do go Western, you can also do that.
Now the balls that are lower, so waist height down to your ankles, the continental and the Eastern you can get away with. So if you are using those grips, you probably want to hit the ball slightly lower. So this will either be by taking the ball before it gets up or after it starts to drop.
Now we've talked about the racket path being a little bit more linear. Now you have to also make sure that you're finishing the shot. So what you don't want to do is to stop the shot during contact, because what will happen there is it's going to turn into more of a jab. You're going to lose a little bit of control. So even if it's a high ball, I can still go through and hit it like my normal shot, but I just start with the racket nice and high, so the racket starts high and finishes high.
Now if you are using the continental grip and you do have a high forehand, it's probably a better option for you to slice it. So we're not doing too much with a slice, we're just keeping the racket facing the direction that we want to hit, and we're just cutting down on that high ball. Now if you get a drop shot, it's very similar, but the racket isn't going back, so you have no backswing or very little backswing and very little follow through. It's just a very small contact swing around that contact point.
Because you're on the move, because you're running, you want to keep as few parts moving as possible. So as you're running, you want to keep control and keep your arm really steady, quite still, and actually do all the movement with your legs. So as you're running with your legs, but you're keeping the arm nice and still. In order to get the best contact and actually have a little bit of feel on that shot. If you're running with a backswing, you're probably going to either jab it or hit through it, and it's going to be really tough to control, especially if you're on a full sprint for a drop shot. Another very important thing to mention is if I'm trying to hit this shot, that my positioning to the ball varies depending on how high or low the ball is. So if the ball is high, I want to make sure that I hit the ball a lot further out in front, so I don't want to be too close. And the reason being, if I get too close and I get jammed up here, I'm now unable to hit certain shots. So from here, I can only hit the inside out forehand. I'll be unable to direct this ball into the wide position. And on the contrary, if the ball is quite low here and I get jammed up here on a low ball, then I'm not able to hit the ball inside out, but I'm only going to be able to hit the ball cross court. So a player that's you're playing against, and if they're a little bit more advanced and they're able to read you a little bit more, if you're not giving yourself enough space around the ball and if you're getting jammed, they're going to be able to predict where you're going to hit that shot. So disguise is very, very important on that shot. So disguise is on the shorter ball is one of the most important things, and that's why players like Federer, like Murray, they can read the players so well, because they know where you're going to hit it almost before you position yourself, as you position yourself, because they know that certain shots will not be available to you if you got a little bit more jammed, or if you caught the ball too close to you. So if your ball is too close to you on the lower one, as I said, you're going to go into more of a cross-court shot. Again, if you're running up to the ball and the ball is short, what you need to always try and think about is holding that position before the shot, and almost sometimes allowing your opponent to move to make their step before committing to the shot. This will allow you to catch the opponent off guard. So sometimes almost just giving it a little hold. You run up, you hold, and then you hit. So that split-second hold can be the difference between hitting a winner or not. And that's especially useful if you're going to drop shot back, or you're going to try and push the ball deeper on the drop shot as well.
So on these forehands, I'm going to use the semi-western forehand grip so you can see how the ball actually comes off my strings and my racket path. Now, because of the grip and because the strings are quite closed prior to contact, I don't actually have to really drop the racket head under the ball to generate spin. Because the strings are like this, my ball is actually going to have some spin on it, even if I come on more of a linear path through the shot. Now I'm going to try the same with the Eastern forehand grip. Now, for me to make this work, it's very important that I do something that Federer likes to do, and that's actually turn the strings and turn his palm facing the ground. So when I'm coming up to the contact, my strings are actually down with this Eastern forehand grip, and as I'm making contact, that's when the strings actually open. So let's have a look. Now if I hit it a little bit higher, straight away with this grip, I feel it's so much harder to actually come on top of the shot, to come over the ball, so I'd have to do something more for push to get this to work. Like so. Now I'm going to use the continental grip, and if it's low, I'm going to push through the shot. If it's higher, I'm going to slice the shot. Now if it's a high ball like you can see on that last one, I'm able to cut it and it's going to stay quite low, especially on these faster bouncing courts, and it's actually going to put me in a good position for the volley. Now where do we actually aim these short balls? So in singles we have 4 main targets that we can go to. On the higher balls we have the option of going a short cross court towards that yellow cone, or we have the option of going down the line to that blue cone that's behind me.
The higher balls you can attack with more power, therefore our targets can be a lot bigger. We can aim almost into areas of the court. We don't have to go for the lines. Now if the ball's a little bit lower, you're going to have to apply a little bit more topspin on it, so therefore you're going to have to use more angles and you have to be a little bit more precise on where you're going to hit that ball, not to get yourself in trouble in the rally. So when the ball is low, if you do have that racket ability where you can generate topspin, if you're hopefully using the semi-western grip, you can go a little bit more of an angle to the yellow cone over there, where I'm actually using a lot of that whip to try and get the ball over the net and then down, dipping, getting my opponent out of the court, and hopefully giving myself, putting myself into a good position afterwards. I can also make the ball go down a line, go deep down a line, and then come forward. Therefore, I'm going to cut off the angle that my opponent has. If I put myself in this position here, if the opponent goes down the line back, I can get this ball with just one step here. And then the same thing, if they try and pass me cross court, I can also go and close this gap here. So it's going to become a lot more difficult for them to pass me when I'm at the net. I'm going to try and avoid going to the white and red cones, because if I'm in the cross court position here and I hit into that position there, the opponent doesn't have to move too much, so the ball would have to be really good and deep to really trouble them. And also I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, since I'm going to have to get myself to the left side of the middle in order to cover the down the line shot, so they're going to be able to pass me a lot easier. So my best shots on that low ball would be a topspin cross, where I get the opponent out of position. The angle that they're at actually allows me not to have to recover as much to the middle, because I'm also going to be covering here, and naturally I'm going to be progressing and getting myself into that middle part of the court. And also if I go down the line, I cut off the angles completely, and I actually have to maybe even look out for the lob if my opponent tries to lob me. On a drop shot, I also have different options. I can also look at where my opponent is standing. So when I'm running forward, I can either push the ball deep to the blue cone, so push it down the line, and then make them come up with a passing shot. And because I'm in a good position with the angles, I can get to most of the volleys there. Again, I might be looking out for that lob. I can also use a drop shot back. So if I see my opponent standing back, thinking I'm going to hit a normal shot, I might drop shot off a drop shot. And it's a very effective tool that a lot of the pros use to get the other player, kind of punish them for giving you a drop shot by hitting an even better drop shot back. Now, if a player is running forward, so a lot of the players will actually follow that little drop shot and close in, get inside the court because they're anticipating for you to give a drop shot back. What you have two options there again, where you can go deep down a line behind them, where you can actually trouble them to move back and expect the lob back, or you can go for an angle where you're running forward and you're doing a little angled chip. So again, it makes them run out of the court, and it's going to be a very tough shot for them to handle. What you don't want to do is just to give it back down the middle, because they're going to be able to get it, and if they are coming forward, they probably are even going to be able to volley. We're also trying to avoid those down the line drop shots, because again, they're going to be coming in, the ball is not going to be coming away from them, so you're going to have to hit a very good drop shot back in order to do it effectively.
So Alex, in your playing experience, would you ever go with the forehand approach into the middle of the court towards that white cone?
Yes, sometimes you do go down there when you're dealing with a particularly quick player and someone who's great at passing shots, so someone who's great at counter punching and passing when they're on the stretch, on the run. So players like Murray, for example, players like Nadal, you know, that would be one of the tactics that players would use, is actually to go straight through hard down the middle and get in, because from the middle it's actually a lot tougher to get the angle to pass, and therefore it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to get that ball, you know, dropping down. Whereas on the run, they get a lot more angle and they can expose you and get you in all sorts of trouble. So if you can get a ball hard enough into the middle and almost catch them on the back foot, you'll be able to get a lot of benefit out of that. So players that are particularly quick and passing shots on the run, you may have to even jam them up. Sometimes the women also use this tactic a lot because they hit slightly flatter shots. So if you're someone who doesn't have quite as much spin on your shots, you can just go flat down the middle through the court and ask the question from the other player. You almost try and catch them by your power rather than by direction or your finesse or your skill of the shot. So there I was trying to hold my shot for as long as I could, just to see if Simon would start his movement early. And the moment he moves into one direction, I'm then able to expose into the other side. Again, be wary of players that are quite experienced. They might show you that they're moving one way and then move the other. But once they start doing that, then you'll be able to see it. But at the moment, I'm literally looking out for Simon moving into a certain direction, and I'm trying to go the other way. So there Simon actually faked a little bit, and he was able to guess the direction where I was going to go. But because my shot was good and I still executed it well, it didn't matter. Yep. Another great option on that short ball is to drop shot back. So as I come up and I prepare for that shot, my opponent might be expecting for me to hit a big shot back, and there I could use my hands and drop shot by changing my grip. So I'd get into semi-western or whatever grip that you're using, and just before I hit the shot, I change into the continental, the chopper grip, and then I use the slice in order to make the ball go short.
Now it's very important to remember that depending on the shot you hit, you'll move into different positions on the court. So if you hit your forehand approach down the line, you'll be trying to move to around that red cone so you can cover the down the line pass from your opponent, but you could also cover the cross-court pass with 1 or 2 steps. Now if you hit your forehand approach cross-court, you'll be trying to move into that white cone or that area around the white cone so that you can cover the line and again cover the cross-court with 1 or 2 steps.
Again, that's why a lot of players don't approach cross-court so much, because you're vulnerable for that down the line pass, because you're going to have to move a further direction to get to that white cone, rather than if you go down the line, you only have to get to the red cone. So you're in a much better position there than if you would have gone cross-court. If you are staying back, so if I'm not approaching the net, because you can choose not to approach the net by hitting that easy forehand short ball, if you go cross court, you're going to have to stay on this side of the court, and if you go down a line, you're going to have to move yourself a little bit onto this side of the court. So it's almost like the opposite of what happens at the net. And the reason for that is, if you go down a line, you're actually exposed to the angle that you're not able to cover at the net. So if you're at the net, you're able to cover the angle because it passes through you, you're at the net. Whereas if you're on the baseline, you're not able to get that, so you actually force the further the angle goes away from you, the tougher it is to get. So you're actually going to have to stay a little bit more here and cover that wide shot, cover the angle that's a possibility for your opponent, rather than the down a line, where the down a line is also a possibility, but they can never get it past the line. The ball can't go further than the line. Even if they hit a perfect down the line shot, it'll simply land on the line and keep going. Whereas on a wide one, it can land and then go past the trams even and into the fence. So the further you are on this side of the court and not on the other side where the angle is available, the more distance you're going to have to cover, the more running you're going to have to do. So if you want to get yourself in the perfect position after that shot, you're going to have to hit. And if it's a cross-court ball, you can stay on the same side, but if you hit the shot down the line, you're going to have to change your positioning and get onto the other side. And actually that helps you to look for your next forehand. If it is your weapon, you're going to get a better chance to get another forehand after that shot. Whereas if you stay here, they're definitely going to put the ball back into your backhand, and it's going to be a tougher rally for you to handle.
So guys, thank you for watching the video. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope you've learned something new. So once again, we go back to the reading. So read, react, and respond. Master all three of those, and we guarantee that you'll be killing those short balls in no time. Thanks for watching. Signing off, I'm Simon.
And I'm Alex.
All the best.